The King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Broadcasters Podcast, where we dive deep into the media industry headlines and dissect the digital disruption that diverges the masses into the new media counterculture and away from the media establishment. Here is the King of Podcasts.
ChatGPT. I haven't talked about anything about ChatGPT because I have an Android phone. I don't have an iPhone, and I haven't gotten my chance to go ahead and register and check out what it's all about. I know what it's all about, but I'm talking about testing it out, giving it my own check to see how well it works and what it would do. I mean, I don't have a whole lot of reason for it, especially when you have someone like me that I'm just used to writing and try to write creatively. And the idea of having AI do the work for me, I mean, it might be nice to go and just give me like the background of what they want to write, and then I would just take it from there. But I wouldn't use it to write scripts. I would use that to necessarily write a lot of descriptions, things like that. But they talk about it. And if it's something where you just need to have something written, hey, you're a webmaster and you're just trying to, or you're a blogger, you just need to have something written just to go on up and fill up space for a blog post or for a description of a podcast. I mean, I can see the use for it, but not much to me anyway. But the radio industry, for whatever reason, radio consultants decided to go ahead and take a shot with ChatGPT, just to get a description where ChatGPT was put to the test about how radio stands in the future of radio broadcasting. It came up with a story. And I want to read what they actually found out. Now, what we learned from is a radio consultant that goes by the name of Joel Robb. He wrote ChatGPT to write something about the future of radio broadcasting. I'm going to read what ChatGPT came up with. The thing is that I believe there's something with ChatGPT that when you're writing something in here, I don't think it necessarily, it's not going to create anything that will be opinionated. It'll just give information based on what's out there. It's pretty basic, but I wanted to see what they said about it. Now, it does give an opinion. Quote, radio broadcasting is facing challenges with the rise of digital media, but it is still expected to have a future, especially in areas with limited internet access. Now, just that point alone, we're talking about where FM, frequency modulation, stands out, or AM stands out. That radio will have a future in areas with limited internet access. Well, that's not going to be much. I mean, everybody has, more or less, has internet access. We're talking about small towns? No. With the advancement of technology, radio stations are incorporating more digital elements into their programming, streaming their broadcast online, and using social media to engage with listeners. Poorly. Let's just make that point. Sure, we have the streaming, but the advertisements, the commercial breaks are lengthy, ad nauseum, and when you have a radio station that decides to go and put their revenue stream out there for streaming and not run the commercials and instead run something else, it is purely pathetic in my point. I hate the commercials that run sometimes on like an iHeart radio station or any of these other stations that they have to run commercials, but they'll run like the broker commercials, the ones that are bartered from like the Progressives or other world. They might just repeat the same ads over and over. Or like an iHeart radio, if it's something music or news or whatever, they'll have their own made segments that are real generic and easy to do once a day, once a month, whatever. And they just add it into their programmatic ad rotation and do that. And I really don't care for that too much. I mean, I want to just bringing in programming. I remember with some stations, they'll just kind of play promos over and over. And those are really boring and, you know, it's just too much. But that's because radio itself, let's just make multiple revenue streams without any rhyme or reason. Because you're just worrying about the advertisements, but you're not necessarily worrying about the content. And it's not just throwing music out there just to throw music. Let's do something else. Because radio doesn't make any sense as to why they can go and run the commercial breaks in the inventory that they have. And I think people are going to just stick around and listen to it. They don't. Now, they move along and say, however, traditional radio faces stiff competition from the likes of Spotify and Pandora and Apple Music, which offer personalized music recommendations and on-demand playback. To remain relevant. Now, this is the suggestion by ChatGPT about what radio should do in terms of the future of radio broadcasting. They say they need to adapt and offer unique content, such as live performances, exclusive interviews, and local news and information. Now, what ChatGPT is saying requires more money. So, local news and information, they need to have a staff. Exclusive interviews, they need to be able to get the record labels or get the artists to come in and record interviews. Live performances, they need a stage. They're not going to be able to go and record from a stage, from wherever the venue is for a set artist. And if they're going to do it in studio, I mean, some radio facilities have like a small concert stage where they can let their fans come in. But that's all. The unique content only draws in listeners maybe once in a week or once in a month. But see, ChatGPT does not talk about where there needs to be something that will engage listeners on the regular. This is why I talk about when you're curating music, the playlists that are out there, that radio and the DJs need to be there for the purpose of music radio, to give you the inside track on the music, to talk more about the music, talk about the artist, and actually go into that part. What freeform radio was. When they explained, they told you about artists, they told you about their backgrounds, they told you about the music, the songs, and what was behind the song, the facts, the history of it. Like, all those things are important. And yeah, we're not going to do it every day. But there's something to be said about if you have a new music format and you want to go ahead and introduce those to new music, then do a proper introduction. But they don't do that. One of the reasons why a chart countdown show does so well is because you get context on some of the artists and why they are charted so high as they are. But they don't want to do that here in radio. Not the radio today. Radio only cares about the advertisers. And even then, I mean, they might get the ads running, but the advertisements and how they run and what they are presenting to placate the sponsors, that's number one. Everything else is secondary. Everything else is secondary. Moving along, another trend in radio broadcasting is the increasing use of satellite radio, internet radio, offering listeners more options and greater access to a wider variety of programming. The use of smart speakers such as Amazon Echo and Google Home have given listeners another way to access radio content. But overall, the future may be uncertain. The industry is likely to continue to evolve and adapt to changing technology and consumer preferences. No, it won't. They'll adapt new technology, but they're not going to care about consumer preferences. Consumer preferences are homogenized. They think everybody listens to the same 200 songs, whatever there is, of an older format. That's it. With a rich history and strong connection to local communities, radio broadcasting has the potential to remain a vital and relevant media for many years to come. If you're taking away the staffing and the people, the locally fostered aspect of stations, where they can't even staff a team 24 hours a day on the weekdays. No. Because you can't staff anyone like that unless you're getting next to nothing working overnights or late night or whatever there is. Even during the day as well. They don't have a clue. Not an idea. So that's what was brought up here. Fred Jacobs, who we've talked about extensively here on the show, says that ChatGPT could generate basic radio consultant advice, asking, how do I build a great radio station brand? And ChatGPT told him to define his target audience, develop a unique value proposition, create a strong brand identity, be consistent, engage with the audience through contests, promotions, and community events, which no radio stations are really doing. Contests, nationwide contests where there's a very limited chance that you can win. Promotions? Who's doing promotions at all? Do you see like any of the radio trucks out promoting events or businesses? No, not at all. I don't know who thinks this is working and this is a good idea, but there is no plan in place. Let's move along to what this article is trying to get out of this story. And I want to take what's here, and this is Sean Ross that writes about this. So let's go ahead and make this point real quick. No one has asked ChatGPT to generate this sort of generic trade magazine quotes that broadcasters have been fond of sharing over the years, but I'm sure ChatGPT could advise to you to find out what listeners want and give it to them. Make the streets come out of the speakers, surround yourself with people smarter than you, and take your radio station to the next level. It's easy to imagine that ChatGPT would be for exactly the wrong things at this point. It can generate anodyne content. Increasingly, broadcasters allocate just enough money and attention to create voice tracking that is often generic. And that temptation to replace is pretty obvious. So that content already blurs the line. ChatGPT scrabbling Wikipedia any worse than a classic kid's voice tracker reading a Wikipedia bio and mispronouncing an artist's name. But this content that broadcasters are creating now isn't winning. It's not doing anything to reverse the decline in radio usage. It will do nothing for radio's fortunes at any price. Networking radio in a generic way is the thing that broadcasters have done with the most enthusiasm of the last years, often because they had no choice. ChatGPT can regurgitate radio's problems and best practices. It can't solve or implement them. That's our job. But if we're busy dismantling radio, we can't solve them either. It's our job to solve the problem of too many spots and unlistenable stop sets. ChatGPT is probably very aware of the issue since I've posted in 15 years of columns on this subject. But yeah, it's pretty impressive what they've done so far. And that's where things are right now. So, I mean, I just don't like it. Now, there's some things from the Pew Research Center that I just want to bring up real quick. That World Radio Day actually just happened earlier this week. And there are facts about the radio listeners and radio industry in the U.S. from the Pew Research Center. So they brought this together. 8 in 10 Americans age 12 and older listen to terrestrial radio in a given week. And that listenership declines. Nearly half of U.S. adults say sometimes they're often getting news from radio. 1 in 5 adults say they get local news from adult radio stations. After a decline in the 2010s, employment radio news has been relatively stable in recent years. And most radio journalists feel highly connected to their audience. How many stations are actually doing that? Does anybody really have an idea? I don't think so. But anyways, it is what it is. That's what I have in terms of new content tonight. I'm going to do something a little bit of the old format tonight. Because last week I went to the movies and I didn't have anything necessarily to watch. But I decided to do something where it was out of my normal wheel well. I went and saw a Bollywood movie, an action flick called Pathaan, right? The H is solid. Pathaan. It is a movie that's making a whole lot of money right now in the box office. Internationally. I haven't looked at how much it's made so far as of yet, but recently, I'll give it to you like this. Let me look at the numbers right now for what it is so far that I can find from the numbers.com, the-numbers, and see what it's done so far. But it's a high action movie, a little bit cheesy. The action sequences are pretty well done. They do a little bit of that video game kind of stunting photography kind of deal, right? The still photography, right? Among other things. And a couple of dance numbers. So Shah Rukh Khan, I think, is the name of the main actor, and Deepika Padukone, right? They're very prominent in the Bollywood space. Very, very familiar, very popular. They're the main stars of the movie. And then I look for everything else that they have. It's incredible. Like, I really do enjoy what they've done so far. The movie was already made well over $100 million. And I think in India, it was the movie that actually beat Avatar on Christmas weekend. Because I think it's been out since January here in the States. And here we go. Pathaan. The movie so far has broken over $100 million 104. 15 million domestic, 88 million worldwide. Incredible. And it's done pretty good. There's not a whole lot of theaters that are running it. Because remember, for $15 million for a movie like that going to be brought in here, keep in mind that currently the amount of theaters it's running is roughly between 650 and 700 theaters across the board. That's it. So one screen on each of those places, that is it. That's pretty good. The first week it came into the box office, it got $2.5 million. Then it bumped up $11 million and another $12 million this past weekend. Oh no, we got up to $12 million this past weekend. All right, total gross. But I enjoyed the movie. One of the reasons I watched the movie is because there was an actress, or the actress slash podcaster slash model slash many of the things she's very erudite and very wonderful at. You may remember that I brought on an actress that was one of the few interviews I did on the Broadcasters podcast a while back, and her name is Rachel Ann Mullins. You may remember that I talked to her, and the one thing I wanted to make point of is that she happened to be in the movie. She was a featured extra in the movie. She did a fantastic job. I really did enjoy what she did, and she knocked it out of the park. So wonderful to see that happen for her. So happy for her. And what I want to do now is, back in July of 2020, I actually ran the interview with her, and I'm going to bring that back. So she's an international model turned actress, started her career at age 12. She's produced viral campaigns for mega brands in addition to short films and web series, but now she's being featured in movies. And Pathaan is a worldwide box office hit. And she had a prominent role in the movie. She was used in several scenes, significant for the movie's plot. So she's in that. And I also remember talking to her where we talking about her work for over a decade in Hollywood, and that she featured a feature-length documentary called You Slut, and she hosts the podcast No Filter Friday on Public House Media. So that's what I did with her. I've got the chance to go ahead and use a little AI magic to go ahead and clean up the interview, make it sound even better than it was before. And I'm going to just play some clips from that, just in particular about her career and what she's been doing so far. I'm going to go and bring that up and present that for the bulk of the program. We're going to bring that interview back from July 2020 in tribute to Rachel's appearance in the big blockbuster hit Pathaan. Hey, I'm going to give her credit where credit's due. I wanted to go and bring this back and just say, hey, you know what? It's great to see her here. An American actress. The rare chances to see her in a really big box office hit like this movie. Like, it's one of the few people I've had that really, there's always been people that we've had on the program of the interviews that I used to do, that they were doing something for themselves. They were significant. They had accomplished things in Hollywood or in broadcasting or radio or whatever. And I thought this was a good place to go and bring this back. So I'm happy to go and bring back this interview with American model, actress, and producer Rachel Ann Mullins. And here is that interview from July 2020 here on the Broadcasters Podcast. Rachel, thanks for being on the Broadcasters Podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm so glad we got to do this.
I'm so glad that we had the opportunity as well. I really, like I said before we got on, really love what you've been doing. Amazing work. Now, there's so much I could talk about when it comes to your career and really do almost the press junket, if you will, the extended one, but I'm going to just do this because of where we're going to go in this conversation. I want to just go and point out, this is a nice little nod. You did an episode of Mavens Do It Better with Heather Johnson.
With Heather Newman. Yeah, that was really recent.
Episode 62 was a great conversation. I thought you went through a lot of different details, especially what you've done in your career, acting, filmmaking, modeling, all of that. I thought that was a good contextual. It gives you a good idea of everything that is Rachel Mullins. But I want to go and talk into what you've been doing in your work. So first of all, to give the context of what you've done in Hollywood, you've done a lot of TV work. You were the character Sam on ABC's Happy Endings. You were on Fox TV's The Finder, ABC's Don't Trust to Be in Apartment 23. I still laugh at that episode. You were on CSI on CBS, New York, and a number of streaming series. You make it also, and I heard on the Made Us Do a Better podcast, how you've been on a number of movie and TV sets. You were on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I love the movie, God bless.
Yeah.
And you were on Showtime's Black Monday. So great stuff. Talk to me about the direction that your acting career has taken, thanks to when you've had Netflix and Amazon and Hulu versus the rest of what you've been doing in traditional establishment cable and network TV.
Well, so here's a fun story. So because I've been working for 19 years now, I get to say things like, we used to shoot on film and there was no retouching. And
right.
That has changed over the years, but I actually worked on one of the 7 original Amazon pilots. And
wow.
Which is kind of a cool thing. I was also working on the first movie that was ever made for YouTube. Like a legit movie that was actually made for YouTube.
Yeah.
That was directed by Sebastian Couture. So I got to do some firsts on this like digital front thing, which is really cool. But when I got the call for that Amazon pilot, I was working on the Harlem Shake video for Glee.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, do you want to come play Ed Bacon Jr.'s like crazy girlfriend that like ties him up? Her name's Debbie. And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Why not? And I'm like, okay, great. Like, okay, so it's digital. And I was like, whoa. What are you talking about?
Right. I could see that. I mean,
it was like, yeah, that was like a new thing.
But now then you also notice the same thing where, okay, in podcasting 10 years ago, I said this story a few times. The Don and Mike show was a nationally syndicated show that was on radio at the time, right after the death of Anna Nicole Smith. And I called into their show mentioning, and they kind of called me out, asking what do I do for a living, trying to tell them what to do, how to talk about their radio show. And I said, I do podcasting. And at the time they said, oh, so you basically work at a McDonald's. Like, that's the kind of respect I had. So I'm imagining that's the kind of respect that you almost felt like, and it wasn't like, maybe it just felt like almost like a devalue of your craft, but you really didn't know.
It's just like, you think about like, oh God, what is this that going to be like? Like, that's what you're fearing. Like, is there going to be water? Like, what's going on here? Like, that's the thing that I worry about anyway, because I'm very happy to be paid staff. Like, that's fine, but like, I'm going to need this to be kosher. So
yes.
I was like, okay, let's do this. Like, we'll see what it's like. And like, I love Ed, like I knew him prior. So like, okay, cool, let's do this. And I got there, and that was so beautiful. It was so gorgeous. They spent $3 million on that pilot, which is like, I mean, HBO occasionally spends that much on a pilot, but that was a very healthy pilot budget. And everybody was like really, really nice. And this is how I got to meet Jeff Bezos, was that we were all just like sitting in our chairs, like sitting around forever. I think I was like either the martini or the Abby Singer shot of the day, which doesn't surprise me because that happens to me all the time. Mm-hmm. I was just sitting around in my chair basically all day, and then they paraded like all of the Amazon executives like came through, was like, oh, hi, thanks for being here. We're like, yeah, sure, totally. And I was like, oh, okay, so this is going to be cool. But yeah, but that's what studios do. Like, if you ask anybody that works in the studio system, like they just get them the best people they can find, and then just shower them with cash and hope for the best. Like that.
Right. Now, one thing I got noticed too is that, and for myself, I know there's been a number of shows I watched that were ABC Network shows. And I know I passed by happy endings, and I've every so often, and don't just to be in Apartment 23. ABC Studios always has a kind of like a cookie cutter approach, and they do like to cast certain characters into multiple shows. So in one show, if it doesn't necessarily pan out, they do that and just, okay, let's fit this person back into place. Like, it's what it is. But I guess for me, talk to me about the difference between what you're seeing now at the digital, the streaming media studios compared to what you had in network, because you can see the difference in budget, the difference in sets, the difference in creativity.
Traditional television takes forever today to make. It just spend years in development. Like, that's why I don't even really mess with TV from a producer standpoint, because like I do not have the time.
No.
And then like, the shows that just got bought, like just now through pilot season, those took years to develop, and they're going to be a complete wash, because by the time this is all, it's not going to write itself to a world that we're living in before, but like the world going forward, when we're not all locked in our houses, like those are all going to be off the slate. They're going to have to completely.
Oh, I mean, and I'm going to ask you about that in a little bit, because it's not just the fact that they're going to have this pandemic that's going to hold everything back. Then you also have other things with the labor disputes. And I want to ask you very briefly about that in a little bit. My thing is just that when I look at all of this, I'm just saying to myself, you know, I feel like anybody that's doing anything through Netflix or Amazon or Hulu, they're kind of just, they're showing up everybody on terrestrial like, okay, you get old guard. You do this antiquated protocol way, like it's still 1970. You're like about to launch All in the Family. No, it's not that way anymore. And I think, you know, it took them a long time to get used to limited series, doing 8, 10, 13 episodes. I'm still surprised there's still 22 and 24 episode runs. CBS can do it because of the audience. It's just an older audience, and that's what works. And I mean, even what the CBS says, I mean, every show is formulaic. Even Hawaii Five-0, Magna PI, you can look at all
those are all procedural. Those are all procedural.
And they almost look the same.
Yeah, and that's how you keep a show on the air. Like stuff like Law and Order, and it's been on forever today, or Jerry Bruckheimer stuff, all the CSIs. Like, and that's great. Like as an actor, like that's like the dream to get on a serious regular on a procedural show and it'll work until the end of time. Like that's the dream.
Absolutely.
That's the dream.
Now I want to ask this too about the fact that I always feel like there's something to be said about, there is, I mean, I think digital streaming is still more of the passion projects. And I think when you have big stars that are just willing to get a lot of cash to go and come in and do a project of their own volition without anybody telling them what to do, I still think the best content for me is still pay cable. I still think your HBOs, your Showtimes, your Stars are putting out tremendous content. You got a chance to get in that environment.
Yeah.
And
people is bombed because they don't necessarily have to abide by like primetime network TV rules. And that's where you can have things like Game of Thrones or Sex of the City. You can, those kinds of places are the kind of environment where you can push a genre forward. There's a really good interview, which is what we should all strive to do with people that are filmmakers or whatever it is that you do. Like, are you like, that's always a question that you should be trying to answer when you're putting something together, is how are we pushing this genre forward? Is this, are we contributing to the genre, or are we just, out here flopping around? There's a really great interview with Kim Cattrall when she talked about like going over like the dialogue for the character of Samantha, and that never, and then history of television had a woman spoke like that on TV, and she's like, I don't know why you can say this. And she, she obviously figured it out. But that pushing that those premium cable environments are a place where you can push a genre forward and, lead into the next.
And I don't feel like it's getting I don't feel like the level of content's getting any less, which is the best part. I mean,
that's wonderful. And that's the great thing about the technology that we're shooting on today between R's and Reds. And like, I just got a new Sigma FP that I'm absolutely in love with. It's the smallest mold brim mirrorless camera, and it does digital. It does stills, and I can shoot cinema DNG file on it and raw. Like, it's so beautiful.
Wow.
But it's so amazing and gorgeous. Or like the Canon C100, the Canon C200, they showed a lot of the stuff for Ant-Man on those small cameras because they're trying to track these little teeny tiny things, and like an Arri Alexa or Red Dragon, like within a full cinema rig, just can't get in there.
Right.
So it is this upswing in technology in the production side. Or I could go on and on and on all day about like tentacle boxes and like the advancement that's made for sound. And you can do this really small thing and make it look amazing.
Now, I will say one thing, and that comes for every project, no matter what. I've talked to sound engineers about this as well. I talked to the sound engineers that did Blade Runner 2042. And I just said, listen, please, sound. God bless. Some of these people, they just don't get the sound right on a lot of these shows. And
it's really, really easy to biff it. It's update. And like the sound department just gets kind of pushed into corner, and they're just there under their headphones, and like people kind of forget about them. But like, as a director, like that's like my main people that I'm like, your main people that you're talking to is your supervisor, your DP, and your sound guy. Like, you should be moving as a unit. Like,
absolutely. I mean, yeah, you're making content for studio, for surround sound, but here, okay, Only so much Foley, more dialogue, please. Just get the mics on them. Come on, get the boom mic on there. So, with that said, and honestly, for me, Showtime and HBO have been across the board, but Showtime, honestly, everything from Homeland to Billions to Ray Donovan to Shameless. I mean, just...
I worked on Ray Lynch. Don Boyd adopted me. It was great.
Oh, my God. That must have been a great show. And I mean, I'm glad they're getting the final season. I was a little bit upset that we're not going to do that. I just feel like that show kind of jumped the shark when they moved over. It's like Nip Tuck. I feel like it's exactly the same scenario. But
I believe it's a lot of the same people. It's a very close aesthetic.
Yeah, no, and honestly, what is it? Ann Biederman, who did executive produces the series. I love Southland. So, like, when I followed along, I was like, oh, yeah. And then Lee Schreiber won me over. And John Voight, great character. My God, I love that show.
I love John so much. I've been working on John for years because I would see him at, like, events and stuff. He was always so nice to me. The first day that I met him, I had to give this, like, very short talk about just my own personal opinions on things. And he came over to me. He's like, this is before Ray Donovan, which is how we got derailed. But he came over to me and he's like, you know what? I'm thinking about doing this college speaking tour. You should come with me. And I melted. And I was like, oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah. So we've been texting for like years.
Yeah.
Working on this. And then when I worked on Ray Donovan, he's like, oh my God, you're here. Hey, what's up? And it was the same week that Brad and Angelina were getting divorced. So he was out. There was a position available.
Wow.
And Abaddon.
Fantastic. There was just so many different people that come into Hollywood that are even the same thing when you see people going from from some small town America to New York City, and just the vulnerability. Because here's the thing, you're looking at you, okay, young, probably quite beautiful, precocious, could be a little bit naive. Who knows at 12 years old how you came, what kind of a life you've lived prior to going and getting yourself in front of a camera and dealing with all the people of the world, all these different, management and, photographers and directors and whoever people that are handling your career, and to put the trust on them. And there could just be these bad actors across the board. I'm honestly happy to see that you've made it through after all this time, that you didn't get caught up into something like that. Or I don't know.
Well, I'm really shocked that I didn't, but I'm also from Detroit. So
okay.
I think that, the Lord works in mysterious ways.
Yes.
And I think that probably had a lot to do with it. And again, I don't understand power structure. So if somebody was to be like, oh, hey, let's do this, I'd be like, I gotta go. And just not give it a second thought.
Right.
But yeah, a lot of that is just God's protection and being from Detroit originally. So
exactly.
I've already seen worse. Take your Tinseltown crap world.
Wow.
But yeah, it is shocking to me, and people assume that about me. They think because I shouldn't say that I work in space, because I don't think it's in my podcast. But because I'm so heavily involved in that space, they're like, oh, you must have been whatever. And I'm like, no, actually not.
Yeah.
I wasn't, but an advocate nonetheless.
Amazing. I want to ask also about this, because that's also the other thing that most contracts have, because everybody's under contracts, and that's why certain things can get away like they get away with, right? Bloomberg Law, they had a story titled "Workplace Morals Clauses Take Hold Beyond Showbiz in the Me Too Era." Now, here's what they said. Morality clauses, quote, which allow companies to terminate contracts based on behavior that could damage corporate reputation, largely appear in contracts for Hollywood actors and endorsement deals with stars or athletes. But their use is expanded into C-suites as employers on Wall Street, taking it to the other level, and beyond seek to avoid backlash from executive misconduct that can hit their bottom lines. So what do you think about this growing trend that Hollywood was responsible for the morals clause to be much more prominent across every other business sector?
I think that's a great idea, and I think Hollywood should also do it too, because as an actor, or most of the time as a front-facing, even above the line people, do have these morals clauses in their contracts. But for whatever reason, that doesn't extend to network executives or studio executives. There's been several networks, i.e. children's networks like Disney and Nickelodeon, that have these morals clauses, in their performer contracts for children or for the adults on those networks. And they're strict. You do this, you do that, blah, blah, blah. But they regularly have pedophiles behind the scenes, known child molesters. So,
and I've heard some names about that.
Oh, yeah. How are you going to tell Hannah Montana she needs to adhere to a morals clause when you're over here hiring and rehiring pedophiles? Like,
and I was trying to, I'm not to put the blame on anybody because, it's innocent until proven guilty. But if I hear another thing about Dan Schneider at Nickelodeon again, my God, I'm afraid of some of the things I hear, that rumors and innuendo that come out there. And I only can wonder, who else is out there that's causing some things like this that is being kept so tightly tightly lipped that nobody's talking about. And obviously the moralities clause is very important. I just think, again, listen to the victims. I mean, if, regardless, kind of listen to people and take people for the chance and just, investigate things as they come across and find out what's going on, because it's scary to see all this is going on.
I mean, everything merits due diligence. Everything. Like, there's nothing, I'm not really a huge, I know that's an unpopular opinion I have, but I'm not like a big, cheerleader for believe all women or believe all whatever. Right. I don't actually think that's a good policy. I do believe in due process, and I think it's really, really important.
Yes.
For everybody involved. And that's not just here where it's constitutionally enshrined, but across the world. And even aliens. Let's extend due process.
Right.
But I think that's important. And I think to harken back to the whole culture shift and self-policing and things like that, of okay, every time somebody says something, we have to unpack this bag fully and get everything out and see what the deal is. Nothing's automatic, as it shouldn't be. Nothing should be automatic. We have to, put the effort into the due process and the due diligence and investigating what happened and going from there. Now, no, knee-jerk moves have never served anybody. So let's not say that we did.
Exactly. But I'll tell you, there's a lot of things where you're seeing it even just on social media. You're seeing just that the everyday people are kind of getting themselves caught up in the cancel culture and just a real moral, puritanistic kind of feel if anybody has any kind of opinion or thought process that doesn't go with the status quo. It's just and the thing is that there's got to be an openness, an opportunity for people to go ahead and say a free speech, damn it. Where is that? Be able to go ahead and say, if something's happening, somebody should go ahead and, be able to speak up. Not only speak, but speak up.
It went the same place, mature adults went. It's not. It just doesn't seem to be around anymore. And for whatever reason, the fanatical has such a loud voice that, and I feel like this is my help. I can see the writing on the wall. I know what's up. When things don't add up, they just don't add up. And it's plain to see that. And I'm not really trying to argue with anybody about it. And we have, really put a premium on this whole debate about it.
Yes.
Debating and arguing.
Debating discourse. We should have much more of that. Please. I would love that. I like to have that. I don't like this being shut down. And there's certain things I can't say or can't do. It's just not fair. Now, I want to move along a little more into this and delve into the fact of how this same story about morals clauses. This is the interesting part. So a business law professor at University of Miami, Patricia Abril, she said this also because, do you know these morality clauses can be overreaching in an era where ubiquitous internet activity and political sensitivity has put everybody's off-duty speech, conduct, and reputation out of the microscope. So when they're not behind the camera, even what you say that's not even on the record, off the record, you are being watched, you are being, monitored. Now, here's the thing that she says here. While they can suppress misconduct, the agreements can serve as a powerful tool for companies to insulate themselves from biased claims, terminate contracts, if there's public backlash. She says this, quote, morals clauses can become more problematic when there is a great differential of power between the parties. It's not hard to imagine a situation in today's world of social media where some kind of behavior can embarrass the company. People today are more likely to judge that person, and that can lead to reputational spillover on the company. People come to quick judgments. Absolutely correct. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, but I do, and again, I think that's a maturity thing too. Like, I think when somebody, when Ariana Grande licks a donut at the Cronut place on 3rd Street and says some dumb stuff, like, okay, whatever.
Or whatever she did with the donut sting. I forgot what it was that she did with the donut. She licked a donut behind his name and said, and we're like, it's just something Ari-esque, right? And should she have done it? No, but like, did she do that while at a press junket for Nickelodeon for Sam and Cat? Or no, she did. Right.
That was on Ariana's own time. And there's that argument. It's like, oh, well, they're a public figure, and like, oh, it's like, well, no, they still have their own time. They're not working in a professional capacity right now, and that's just something that I think we've seen a lot play out with like Meghan and Harry lately, is that, every little thing is scrutinized. And it's like, well, when she's walking the dog down the street and in Canada, like, she's not shaking a dignitary's hand like her dog's taking a shit. Like this is not news, kids. It's not. Like,
I still can't believe Rachel from Suits is royalty. I still never will get over that. And she got married to, the prince. Like, I still can't believe that. But
I think she got a way better deal than she did, honestly.
Oh, probably.
In my opinion.
Oh, God.
I remember seeing her at gifting suites back in the day.
Say again?
So I remember seeing her at gifting suites back in the day.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, this is a million years ago. Yeah. We got, that whole crew of chicks from like the Deal and Ordeal days, like Joanna Krupel, Rachel Sterling.
Well, you know what? This is the point I got to make this before I miss this. Okay. There is a line where you can go ahead, if there's stuff that you're doing outside and you're just like living your life, absolutely, but then there's also times where celebrities can take it upon themselves. They can go on the social media, use that platform, don't realize what they're saying, and like, oh shit, Vanessa Hudgens, what the fuck did you just say? What are you doing?
Well, I mean,
you're trying to put your career. I don't like you. Don't do that.
Luckily for Vanessa Hudgens, she doesn't really work anymore. It's like she doesn't have to worry about things. But she's a lovely girl.
I thought she was great. And by the way, I saw her in Bad Boys for Life. I thought she was great, and I was like, come on.
Oh, she did a good job. That's fantastic. Most of the time, the last time I see her in the last few years is at the Mel's on Sunset.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I think you have to think about like your likability and like, who really cares what other people's opinions? Like, hashtag no. Like, that's just not...
Yeah.
Unless you're directly involved in some way, I don't see how it's relevant. Like, oh, my opinion on this, except I've never experienced it, I've never been by it, and like, I'm just telling you what I think. Like, please hush your mouth and let the adults talk. Like, I think there's something to be said for that. But there's also like this, for whatever strange reason, like the public outcry, like this person should speak on this. It's like, why? What?
That's going to do it for the show. Thanks for listening in. Come back next week for another Broadcasters Podcast. Remember that content is king and the control of your content is in your hands.
Thank you for listening to the Broadcasters Podcast. Find all the links to subscribe to the show by going to broadcasterspodcast.com. And don't forget to check out the King of Podcasts wrestling program, the Wrestling is Real podcast, exclusively at wrestlingisreal.com.